All right. So, how did India become an independent nation? We just went over some responses to the do now. So here we go. All right, I'll give you a second here. All right. So just to recap, if we go back to the story of India and the colonization of India, we know Britain shows up and they use the British East India Company to try to control India. Okay. Um, it made sense because imperialism was kind of an economic function. Therefore, why shouldn't a large company kind of oversee this process? And then we told the story of the Sepoy Mutiny, if you guys remember. This was the story about the British East India Company and their security wing using sepoys, who were Indian citizens, as employees trying to secure uh, the British East India Company's interests in India. And the problems arise when they use cow and pig fat to grease rifle cartridges. The sepoys get really mad, they mutiny, etc. And this results in ultimately the British government sending in regular British army troops into India, and Britain takes direct control with their government over India. And that's kind of the situation that India is in. So that kind of sets the table for where we're at now. So let's kind of contextualize. Let's think about what's going on at the time. Okay. Britain is in control. The British troops and the British government are present in India, and the whole purpose of this is economics. So the British government is keeping very tight control over how the economy in India is working. Okay, so we need to think about how Indian people are going to feel about that. They're only going to deal with that for a certain amount of time before they get sick and tired of other foreign countries coming in to determine their own fate. So pretty quickly, this becomes an issue of nationalism. I'll give you a second here. All right, so Gandhi is a person that some of you may have at least heard of. So we're gonna talk a lot about him in the coming days. But like we said, nationalism becomes kind of the main motivating factor for Indian independence. Like we said, contextualize. Think about what's happening there. India is full of British government officials and British troops that are kind of controlling society and the economy at gunpoint, for lack of a better term, and this is only going to be tolerated for so long. So the leader of this nationalist independence movement in India is going to be this guy, Mohandas Gandhi. This is a nationalist issue because the people of India, with Gandhi as their kind of spiritual leader, are sick and tired of having other countries determine their fate. They are tired of being controlled by other countries, and they would like to determine their own future without being controlled by foreign superpowers. So that's why this is a nationalist movement. Okay? Gandhi famously uses certain strategies to kind of protest against British control. Those are kind of nonviolent protest and civil disobedience. Okay? Gandhi's a pacifist. He does not believe in violence in any way. But as far as just following orders, he's not going to do that either. So there's a difference. He's not going to actively fight. He's not going to take up arms against the British, but he's going to find his own ways to kind of protest some of these things that are going on. So, for example, one important event that you will learn about is what's called the Salt March. So what Gandhi does here is Britain is forcing India to buy all of their salt directly from Britain. Okay, they're not allowed to buy salt from anywhere else. They're not allowed to cultivate their own salt from sources in India. Any salt that is available in India has to be purchased from the British. They are the only ones allowed to sell it there. So what Gandhi will do as a form of protest is he will march all the way to the sea, and he will try to get his own salt and kind of circumvent the British sale of salt. The British get really mad and they arrest him. And this is one example of Gandhi's kind of nonviolent protest and civil disobedience. His attempt to kind of call attention to the unfair treatment of India by the British. This will go on for quite some time. Long story short, eventually India is going to gain their independence from Britain in 1947. Now, I would love to tell you that Britain grants India independence because they are so emotionally moved by Gandhi and all of his protests and civil disobedience, and they really start to come around to the humanitarian kind of aspects of why India should be independent, but that's just simply not true. If you think about the time, 1947, this is 2 years after the end of World War II. So Britain has just fought back-to-back world wars in the span of 30 years or so, and they are destitute, okay? Britain, although they were technically on the winning side of each of those world wars, they have experienced economic despair as a result of funding these wars, and Britain simply does not have the economic resources to continue running all of these colonies, so they are kind of left with no choice but to grant India its independence. That's pretty much the meat and potatoes of it. There are some finer details that they'll need to work out, and some other considerations, but for the most part, this is the reason why India is granted its independence by Britain. It's unfortunately not for more kind of altruistic or idealistic reasons. It's really just more of an economic decision than anything else.